السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. سعادة الأستاذ جمال سند السويدي.
Your Excellency, Dr. Swedi, dear attendees, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum once again. Welcome to you at the fourth panel discussion with four speakers. I would like to welcome them all warmly, and also allow me to express my deep thanks to Dr. and friend as thinker, Dr. Jamal Said Swedi, the Director General of the Center, who really gave me this opportunity to manage and coordinate this session at the 8th Annual Conference for Education, which discusses a very important topic and also has many viewpoints, whether it has to do with the methodology or curricula, as well as or maybe that are stable or changing, especially the great challenges that our Arab world faces. And we would like also to think about the speech made by Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan before we start this panel discussion. And we are also looking forward to have moral education and its concepts and contents that are encouraged by our Sharia and our traditions and customs and legacy and our genuine identity, as well as all the core values that we have with humanity for consolidating all the virtues and values in our children and students in a regular and systematic manner, in order for them to have knowledge about them and also in their practice socially and their daily dealings, so that they would be promising generations that are proud of their legacy and also of their past and present, and are able to pioneers in for their homeland, and those who really think deeply about the word given by Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed and the noble dimensions of his vision. So on the social or community level, he wants our students to have a siege of intellect and intellectual identity that is characterized by tolerance, especially in this technological age, and not to be built on contradictions and duality. And what really urges us to think about his vision and its dimension, and maybe the speakers today will deal with this aspect, important and crucial aspects. The common feature about different experiences regarding the concept of moral education that we have listened to, whether it is the Finnish or Japanese, are all built on the idea of identity, which assumes there is the respect of others, whether and collective groups. So we really are required to maintain its components and enriching them and maintaining other values that are necessary for the advancement of our country in the contemporary age. Now we will start our fourth panel, which is under the title of Moral Education Insights from the UAE Educational Sphere. We have four great speakers. Mr. Marwan Ahmed Al-Wakil from Undersecretary of Public Education, and Dr. Saeed Musabbah Al-Ka'bi, the Chairman of Sharjah Education Council, and Dr. Moza Ubaid Gobash, the Chairwoman of Ausha Bint Hussein Cultural Center, and Dr. Khalifa Al-Swedi. He is an academic and media professional from the United Arab Emirates University. Now we will start with the first speaker for this session, Dr. Dr. Sawaleh, the Undersecretary of the Ministry of Education, who has been working for 20 years in the strategic planning and development of policies and human resources, as well as governance and encouraging change. He will talk about moral education briefly in a few minutes, and about the challenges, response, and opportunities in the UAE and in the curriculum, so that we can open we will allow other speakers to give their presentations later. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, most compassionate. At the very beginning, I would like to express my deep thanks to Dr. Jamal Suwaidi and the center and those who are present today. And I would also send the regards of Dr. Hussein Hamadi, who was not able to come today because he has another meeting at the same time. And thanks, Doctor, for your introduction. And also I would like to congratulate the leadership, government, and people of the UAE on the occasion of our National Day, the 46th anniversary, and also a tribute to our brave martyrs, and praying to God that He will have mercy on them. And the moral education is considered, its teaching in the Emirati schools is a dramatic shift or a paradigm shift in our education, because linking academic aspect to other things like moral education is a paradigm shift for the UAE, the Khalij region, and the Arab world in general. So we are sure that we have a leader who is His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who really was able to have UAE and our future generation under his focus, and this in order to protect them in the future and to protect our society. So for the sake of history, I should say that this leader will be able to lead UAE towards having a flourishing future through diagnosing all the problems that we have and giving the proper medication in order to include all the subjects in our curricula. This is a subject it has been recently taught and included, and it has been supported a lot on His Highness's side, and there were many discussions here in this country and abroad in order to have the proper teaching of this subject. And we have many ambitions because we are still at the beginning, and we have many challenges, and of course now everyone can know about the world through this small gadget, which is our mobile phones, and we have also to face the invasion of extremism and also all teachers have a big role to play in order to enhance such values for our kids. So we have big challenges, but still we are up to these challenges, and the Ministry of Education and the government have set programs and goals to link this subject. But what really aim at is having integral roles, because the burden is not only on the shoulders of the teacher or the principal, but there should be some integration between all parties, whether it is the school, the social community, institutions, or family, or everyone. So there cannot play the role separately as a school. And we still reiterate through this conference that we will come out with recommendations for the unification of such roles, and which really reach the level of individuals, because everyone is responsible in this society. So, Dr. There are we need time left for discussions and questions. So we will not really stop at what we have gained from this year, but we will have more and more. And this is depends upon all the measurements that we will come out with. Thank you. Thanks to you for your speech. If you would like to sit down, please do. Please do. So we will have discussion at the later part. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, most compassionate, Your Excellency, Dr. Saeed Musabbah Al-Kaabi, the chairman of Sharjah Educational Council, who used to be a teacher as well as a principal of one of the schools, and also the director of one of the educational directorates in Sharjah. And I would like him in a few minutes to shed light on the outputs of as a field study regarding moral education and its importance and what it faces, whether they are opportunities or obstacles. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, most compassionate, good afternoon. I am really happy and honored to stand here and thanking this center, and thanks to Dr. Jamal Sanat for his invitation. And we hope at the end we will arrive at indicators or beginnings that are needed in teaching moral education, and so that would allow us to develop the teaching of this subject. Yesterday and today we have been talking about moral education and its importance in schools. Is it really a necessity, and is it something new to our society? Actually, no. It has been and is still there, and all of us give much care to moral education. Why is it necessary? Because you all know that there have been great changes in our societies and our openness to the world, and now the world is a small village, and also the family and society are not the only mentor of our kids. We have those alerts that asks us to be ready, because what we might meet in the future would be more urgent. So do we need moral education? What about it? We have to be not to be too optimistic. We have to teach it in schools, but it is not enough. And many of our speakers talked about the role of schools and the role of outstanding teachers and the need to have outstanding teachers. The role of teachers and their high skills are very important, but still teachers and schools are not the only player in this regard. So teachers and schools only play 20% of the roles needed. So what do we really want? Is moral education is a reaction to some situations that we are witnessing here in the UAE. Do you want to change behavior or conduct or thinking or values or morals? So of course morals differ from one country to the other, but values are similar, and conduct also is different from one country to the other. So we have to define and agree upon the definition of such things. Otherwise, we will have the differ, and we will not be able to move on. So decision makers have to know where they are heading and why, and also their target and goal. Otherwise, we will have differences and things will get more and more complex. So after we agree upon our direction, so we have to think about the belief in integration that has been initiated by His Highness Sheikh Saif in one of the government summits. And we have to think about integration. I'm not talking about schools or home. I'm talking about all society categories, whether it is local or federal. All these components should have this constitution and follow all the ideas we agreed upon. We, after agreeing upon all the main points, we should have a means for measurement in order to know what we arrive at and what we are heading to and what we want. After that, we know about the impacts on this project, and I agree, fully agree, because I am confident regarding all my colleagues that in one day we will get what we want. Thank you. A lot of thanks to our speaker, our third speaker. Now we'll move to the third speaker, who is Dr. Moza Obeid Gobash. She is a specialist in sociology, and she is a professor at the UAE University, and she is a department head for a long time. And I know that she had many insights that she provided us with. And she has numerous researches and valuable studies. And I hope that she will really illuminate us in this session from the social angle, and tell us about the social dimension regarding moral education and what it faces, concepts, challenges, and opportunities. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, most compassionate, good afternoon. I'm required to talk to you about the social aspect of the moral issue and the educational issue, but this really needs a long time to talk about. So would you allow me to have a bit more time, because the moral education issue is really something very interesting, and it needs a social analysis. So when Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed really gave his directives to teach this subject, I said that we now have arrived at the phase of social architecture. Now we have people who are person who is good knowledge in the social cultural areas as well as education, who is Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. He is really a cultured and politician, and he is aware of the importance of investing our children in and ask ourselves, are we the way we want? And the national service that has witnessed our children in the military sector were happy to play the role, but we have discovered that they came from different milieu, which are diverse as far as conduct, behavior, language, and culture are concerned. Many of them even don't speak Arabic, or not good at English. This has been a positive shock that we had, and it left us with a question politically or educationally and culturally, which is, who are those children, from where they came? 46 years we have left the issue of marriage open to everyone. A female national can marry a foreigner. This applies also to our male citizens, and we have kids who have different types of belonging. And so moral education doesn't only deal with good conduct and tolerance only, but also there should be we should have a unified identity and national belonging. So this is what really matters and what is most important. This is the social architecture that I'm talking about, having a curriculum or methodology that has been the output of the decision makers' idea, and in order to rebuild the character of our Emirati nationals. And this is the role of the Ministry of Education as well as other institutions. So this social architecture, if it is based on a traditional administrative system, it will not work. But it needs a system that is technical, analytical, and intellectual, as well as dynamic. So it is not just something that I impose on our kids. Even when we taught them our national anthem, it is something that has to do with teaching them the way they should belong to their country. They have to sing their national anthem loudly. This is important to the social architecture line that we are going through. So it aims at flourishment as well as happiness, and this is the system of our government in order to have cohesive structure of our population. There were some papers that have been presented yesterday, and they talked about having 200 nationalities in our country. However, there were some things that are not true. This is something that we only see on the surface, but researchers and when they go to social workers in schools, especially private schools, they will find some sort of rejection among those groups. And if we go to the Abu Dhabi, the UAE courts, and we study the lawsuits, they have to do with sects and different religions and cultures. So it means there is some a kind of dynamic confluence, but maybe it doesn't show clearly because we have a sort of economic stability. But if this flourishment, economic flourishment is less. So we need this cohesion on the surface and deeply as well. We have to know what's happening at the bottom of our society. There should be a social awareness. What I have arrived at some points that I call now recommendations are for the interest of the Ministry of Education. This is a social theory, but its implementation needs that having a research unit in each school. That is a group of people who are only concern is having researchers, and they cover like 70 or 50 schools who study all the problems of their students, whether the positive or negative sides, and they will pour into the central point, which is the Ministry of Education, and these units will be able to develop the subject of moral education and also our view and prospects of the future. This is an integral part of my recommendation, because today the development in any society without statistics or studies cannot be achieved. There is another recommendation that has to do with the concept of a teacher who is a thinker and educational. I need only 2 more minutes. Thank you. This type of teacher, I want a cultured teacher. If we don't have justice this is also a part of moral education. There should be justice among all teachers. Some of them take 45 and others take 20,000. And those who at private schools take 2,500 dirhams, and in addition to other extra hours. So these are really tired and worn out. What kind of morals that control this? I am a witness that there are teachers whose salary is between 2,500 to 3,000. So the Ministry of Education should really regulate the privileges given to all teachers and to improve their financial environment. They have, of course, their academic qualifications, but they come from collapsing countries, and one of the causes of this is the inequality. So we need to rehabilitate those foreign teachers who are frustrated, and this should be through the Ministry of Education. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much for this great and highly concentrated and comprehensive presentation. And this may be, of course, the doctor has really highlighted a very important topic. How can we envision moral education in the absence of research, especially that moral education, it is definitely has a stable section, but there is another changing and transforming section, and then we have social engineering and linking all of this to happiness. And thank you very much. This session, the fourth panel discussion with 4 prominent researchers, and we have 4 elements from the world, 4 key elements in the universe, 4 key directions, and even 4 key blood types, 4 of everything in the world. So now we move on to Dr. Khalifa Suwaidi, and he will be the best conclusion of our panel discussion presentations. Before we open the floor to discussions, Dr. Khalifa Suwaidi is a professor. He was in the Curricula department, and he presented an outstanding experience in this regard, and especially on pedagogy. And this is an opportunity for both of us, for us as the audience, and His Excellency is also to shed light on the moral education insights from the UAE educational sphere, and what it has to do with regards to writing curricula and textbooks, especially that Dr. Suwaidi has a number of studies in this regard, the foremost of which the curriculum, the concept, design, implementation and maintenance. Please, the floor is yours, Dr. Khalifa Suwaidi. And then, if I'm not the compassionate and merciful, I've given part of my time to Dr. Wada, so I'll be brief. I have a major problem as an expert in curricula. To be honest with you, when I read the moral education in the UAE research paper, we have 2 kinds of curricula in the world with regard to moral education. We have curricula that focus on life skills, and we have the moral education curricula. When I read the project of the Ministry of Education, I was really perplexed and confused. Does it really have to do with moral education, or does it have to do with life skills? My concept, as far as I know, is that what we have seen is a subject for life skills and not moral education. This is my own personal perspective. I have to submit it in this scientific conference where Dr. Jamal asked us to speak openly and frankly, or to be absolutely frank and open about it, if we can choose the right words. The intention of the moral education project, which was adopted by His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, God bless him, it was a very massive and legitimate intention in this regard, to tackle a number of challenges that we as parents and teachers see every day. We have intellectual deviations, we have behavioral deviations, and we have ethical deviations.
هذا المجتمع الصغير
In this very small community, every single individual is worth a million individual. That is why we need to pay attention to every one of the UAE nationals. When we talk in a statistic that we say the delinquency rates in the UAE, let's say it reached this figure may be worth nothing in the countries whose population or which population is 100 million or 50 million. But in the UAE, even the smallest figure has its significance because we have a small population. So if we want a comprehensive moral education curriculum, then we have to adopt global criteria. We have seen the experience of China, Finland, and Japan, and I visited all of them. The Singaporean experience is the leading one in this regard. We have common factors among them and different ones. Finland does not have an ethical education curriculum, but they train students throughout the curricula and throughout different teachers. So this is a very common thing, and then you can have an ethical subject, an ethical textbook that can be taught by all the teachers of all subjects. But in other countries, we have a specific curriculum for moral education. So what's the problem with curricula? The first problem in the UAE, from my perspective, is the multiculturalism from the teacher's perspective. In Singapore, the teachers are Singaporeans. In Finland, the teachers are Finnish. In China, teachers are Chinese. In Britain, the same principle applies. But in the UAE, the rate of UAE nationals is very small. That is why from kindergarten until high school, children really see many different perspectives from their own teachers. And this is beneficial at certain levels, but if we really want the genuine ethical upbringing that will ensure that we have good UAE citizens, then we have to pay attention to this challenge. The second challenge that all of us know in curricula has to do with the hidden curriculum. For example, when we have a physical education teacher who says physical education is important and you need to stay active and so on, and have a sound body can only be found, a sound mind is in sound mind, the child or student hears this very good, but when he sees the physical education teacher who is very obese and has his belly protruding in front of him as if he was a pregnant woman, then we have two different curricula. We have a hidden curricula and an obvious curricula. So if such a teacher, the teacher of physical education, who has a big pot belly and who is very fat, and I smell the smoking, that this physical education teacher is a smoker, then the student here is affected by a hidden curriculum. The most dangerous thing for students is to find that the students are subject to two curricula: the Ministry of Education curricula and the hidden curricula embodied in the teacher himself or herself. This is very critical to moral education. The last point that I have to do with the moral education, from my perspective, if the Ministry of Education believes that it really needs a moral education curriculum, and this is the project that we have, I propose that they use the same curriculum for the Emirati family. So the moral education curriculum at home should be the same moral education curriculum at school, and this should be taught. This curriculum should be taught to newly married UAE couples and to the Emirati couples and to the children at school. So we would not find any dichotomy or segregation between them. In Finland, they do the same. In Japan, they implement the same principle, and the same is applied in other countries. So the more we reduce the number of dichotomies and differences in the life of Emirati students, that will help them be much better. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalifa. Please, how can we address this dichotomy between appearance and core values among teachers from the moral education perspective. Please. Thank you very much, Professor. At the beginning, we have to tell the truth about those teachers who are teaching and instilling values and helping our children. First, I would like to greet all of them. Secondly, as for dichotomy and this paradox, we as a community, as a society, first and foremost, we do have the values of Islam, which abides all of us to commitment to ethical values with all our interactions, whether they are at school or at home or on the street and so on. So, I would like to say that teachers is not the only individual responsible for this ethical and moral upbringing. And no matter how strong or how efficient the moral education curriculum is, and no matter how much objectives we add to it, it will not really be sufficient. So, we have to say that all efforts have to be joined in this regard. As for teachers, at the beginning of their own education and the teaching students, there is a curriculum designated to kindergarten and another moral education curriculum that is being developed for early childhood, starting from 1 year until 3 years, and then from 3 years old until 5 years old. It will include parents, families, kindergartens, and so on. So this ethical, or let's say moral education is still at the very beginning. It's a nascent curriculum, I have to say that. But our ambition and the entire system will be highly integrated with the child law, with the children's rights, through a highly official and well-disciplined curriculum with kindergartens that will have highly educated and well-qualified teachers. We are communicating with the Ministry of Social Community Development and the Ministry of Health to introduce a system that would support children from the age of 1 year until 6 years. Then we move on with life skills and moral education and academic learning for those students. Dr. Khalifa, as you say, you see a weak man and then you see a weak man and you disdain him, but suddenly you find him more courageous than a lion. So sometimes the core itself and appearance are not really linked, and in many cases it's not a true sign. Are you addressing me? Yes. Sometimes the core values, those who deploy the curriculum may appear in a way that is completely contradictory to the curriculum itself. For example, if a woman is talking about the concept, maybe by what you have said or through your concept, you may reject the concept that a woman may teach the concept of manliness from the Arabic perspective or from the traditional Arabic perspective. Please allow me, maybe I did not make my point clear, Dr. Ali, and you misunderstood me. I wanted just to highlight what is meant by a hidden curriculum. The concept that a physical education teacher should be a role model. It is not expected that a physical education teacher should be a very obese individual and a very tired individual. The physical education teacher, if he wants to speak about physical education, he has to start with himself. Charity begins at home. So this is what I'm talking about. I don't want children to be exposed to curricula. If we have an obese physics teacher, that won't be a problem, unless being obese is against the physics law, against the laws of physics or Newton laws. So what I meant is that a physical education teacher should be a role model with regards to his appearance. Dr. Al-Ka'bi, Dr. Moza referred to the fact that there is absence of research units, even small research units at schools. How can we talk about moral education, which has a transforming section. How can we monitor it? How can we observe it? Or do we have certain statistics or certain elements that we need to address in the community? So the absence of research units and the absence of statistics, how can you, in this regard, select the values that you need to teach the most or focus on the most? As I highlighted at the beginning, first and foremost, we need to agree on the values. We, as the community, as decision makers, we need to agree on the elements that we need to highlight or focus on. So how can we select those values? Should we select them according to my perspective, Saeed, or Ali's or Dr. Mosa's perspective? As Dr. Mosa highlighted, we should start with research. When we talk to someone, I reply with a figure or with a statistic. I don't reply with my own understanding or my own concepts. I want students to be religiously, very religious students. So this may be my own concept, while others may say, no, let's abide by traditions. But another one say, no, we don't need those so deeply rooted traditions in 2017. We need to sift those values and select the ones we want. So when we agree on a certain objective is when we have figures. So when I say Dr. Jamal, we have agreed on teaching tolerance, because our studies, as Dr. Mosa highlighted, we've found that 60% of students cannot coexist with other people of different orientation. So when we talk about being kind to one's parents, this is a value. So when I see a certain situation or influenced by a certain story or so, then I introduce being kind to one's parents. So when I say that's 40% or 60% of our students are not really paying attention to the value of being kind to one's parents. So the decision maker here must be using figures and statistics and research. Otherwise, it will only be a contentious subject that is completely based on personal and individual perspective. So the more we have research, the more we have figures and statistics, the more we can take and adopt the proper value and use the proper way to address it. In this, as Dr. Mosa has highlighted, she mentioned one of the values. One of the methods is to go to schools, and those schools would cooperate with the Ministry of Education. Maybe this is based on an ideal approach based on Dr. Mosa's experience, but there definitely are other approaches, and I'm responsible for what I'm saying. If we have collaboration from the local and federal entities with regards to families and upbringing, we have in Abu Dhabi a number of entities that would look after children and families in Sharjah and in many locations. So
therefore
مثالية كما تريد القيادة. لو تضافرت هذه الجهود
family, then they should really be equipped with particular figures and statistics, as I said. So you, Dr. Mosa, as a researcher in the area of sociology, do you think that education is this type of education has been really successfully, at least at the community level, is our society today? Because education is a social option. So was education and the ministry has been successful in having or introducing a concept that is really in harmony with the society as far as moral education is concerned? And so when our ministry, when it decided to include this in our curriculum, have they been successful since then? This is really a very important question. Has the community grasped this concept experimentally? Moral education has been really grasped, and it is really welcomed by, especially by the parents. But practically, it still needs 1 to 3 years for testing, because this new concept, like any new concept, needs to be tested, and also calculating the outcomes and measurement of the outcomes. So this really needs the efforts of the Ministry of Education and today our kids, there are some direct means regarding having a role model. Kids really clone or copy their ideas at the human level from their exemplary figures like Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid or Mohammed bin Zayed. They really advise our symbols, and they like to look like them even in their costumes. They like to dress the way our sheikhs wear. But for our youth, as we see some of them in the mall who are having tattoos on their body, and their hair style looks really different, and even our female youth who stay up late in discotheques. So which ministry can deal with this? Is it the Ministry of Interior? So now moral education needs a special channel. It needs Twitter messages every day, and we need all aspects to have outreach with our youth. And so because the look of our youth is really unacceptable as far as religion and society values are concerned. What about the drugs phenomenon? Can this subject be able to face this phenomenon? And this trend is increasing. And what I want to say is that as a concept, it has been grasped by the society, and they are really embracing it. But I have a daily experiment with one of the private schools, and the teacher has to wait every day to wait for an email to execute his task as far as moral education is concerned. And there are instructions issued by the ministry. Mr. Marwan, please let me say it frankly. There are some dictatorly instructions. The lady from Finland said that moral education is based on democracy and freedom for the teacher. So the teacher should come out with their values and instill them in the children. But how come as a teacher I have to wait for an email from the ministry to tell me what to do and what not to do? So the ministry should really allow all our schools to give them the freedom to move and think. Otherwise, they will not be successful, because you cannot really apply this just with instructions and dictating things. But now we will open the phone for the discussion and questions. Name and question, please. Assalamu alaikum to all of you. Thank you very much. I'm Mona Swedi from the Ministry of Education. At the beginning, I would like to ask about how the moral education teacher is selected. Is it according to particular requirements and criteria? Because we choose particular teachers for leadership positions, and it depends on high requirements, conditions and criteria, as well as interviews. So What about moral education teacher? Also for Dr. Khalifa, you gave me something else other than I have another example. If the teacher is all the time insulting students and calling them names and then give them or teach the course of moral education, what about this? They cannot give what they don't have. How can we choose, on what basis we choose the moral education teacher? At the level of each school, the principal as well as the academic affairs, they have to choose the most suitable teacher through their deanings and history and vitality. So it is an important subject, and the teacher has to switch the student to the practical application of such values. And all teachers, of course, are good academically and are of high quality. So the academic guide, as well as the head of the academic affairs, and those who are responsible for this should be taking care of this approach. As for the researches and studies and outcomes, the ministry really has built its curriculum on the basis of academic advancement and also the requirements of the made by the social worker and the committee responsible for that, and also messages sent to parents, and also the regulation for conduct and behavior, and for the security and safety of the school, and also observing all the details concerning their student and their practices, and also having a report every 3 months in the sector of activities in order to solve any problems. And they might also have meetings with the parents as well as other social community institutions, maybe every 6 months, and in order to assess this subject by a team of oversight and assessment, and see how to what extent they have achieved the goals desired. And we have to know also about the level of school behavior and to what extent the team, including the principal and the social worker, have been successful in this regard. So all these points are assessed, and we will now we have started to get into the 3rd month of this subject, and it is taught in English and Arabic, and we have a coordinator of this subject in each school, and they take also notes regarding this in order to be of benefit to the teachers and to analyze them in order to have improvements. So this is only an experimental year to understand what's really going on in schools. Thanks to your answer to the second question. Name and question, please. Ali Faris Dahiri, a senior researcher at the Ministry of Presidential Affairs and at the Ministry of Education. As our speakers gave us full explanation of the moral education initiative, I have just a simple question on what Dr. Moza has indicated regarding the diversity in our private schools. How are we going to deal with the moral education in community schools and private schools? How are we going to deal with moral education in such schools? last year, when the main phase has started regarding the training of teachers, they involved teachers in public and private schools, and also there was some pilot study and there was a study of and examination of the outcomes. And they wanted to know about what they think about the most perfect way of dealing with this course. And also there are curricula which amount to 17, French, English, British, and they have in their subjects that support this subject. So we have different types of training regarding all those different types of teachers from different schools. If His Excellency the Doctor would like to have something to add, Amin Al-Jabri from our national Emirates school. Really, your presentations have been very rich, and really feel that you are with us in the field and feel with what we feel. So regarding moral education, we have attended the training and we had two approaches, and schools can adopt to any of them, and they could be integrated or would be separate. So what on the ground the assessors or auditors have a different point of view. They was insisted on having it for 45 minutes in a separate period. The other point has to do with the with how amazing moral education is, and it's very important to the society, as well as Hawiyati or My Identity program. And Mr. Swedi has talked about two important points. How I can respond to the needs of our society and use figures to lead the educational process. Also, all students should have a national identity, and this is really important in private or public sector. And also, they should have high level of moral education. I don't know, do you think that it is, if instead of having a separate Hawiyati program from the moral education, can we have a standard for national identity and a standard for moral education? And this will be included in the criteria of each subject, because all sciences have their own morals. So if I tell the student about these morals and values, at the same time these scientific subjects are taught, then it will not really be of big value. Dr. Khalifa and Dr. Musa, how can we respond, as the lady said, to the needs of our society? And because actually what we heard are indicators to individual behavior. So how can we respond to the needs of our society and build and select regarding this issue of values within the framework of moral education? I would like you to, I hope that you wouldn't misunderstand what I'm saying. We are cooperating with the Ministry of Education. So in conferences, we have to see the issue and examine it as a content and from outside as well. I always prefer to having to the teacher's right to be trained, and this is before getting into the teaching to the different grades, if this teacher is coming from abroad. So he cannot, for example, start his teaching task 1 month after his arrival. So I know that in the UAE we have a pilot program. So I prefer that a new teacher, foreign teacher, to come, for example, in May, in order to have 3 months to be able to adapt to the UAE, and also to have some training that would allow him to be able to teach in the classroom and achieve the goals of the ministry. So in all countries in the world, in advanced world, we have some compulsory periods of time for each teacher, according to their specialty and experience. And this is something we need to apply to for moral education subject or any other subject. As for the question about integrating morals and its goals into other subjects, we have the two experiments having moral education integrated in different subjects like Japan, but in Japan and Singapore have a separate subject for moral education. So this is the decision of the Ministry of Education.
I have a comment before answering the question. We have received the final report. God bless you, Dr. Jamal. The final statement of the conference. I hope that we can add to it the points that we have really discussed in this session. This will be great as well. The question here is the question posed by the gentleman about the integrated or teaching moral education as a separate manner. Actually, this integrated approach is the best one. It means that every single individual should really discuss this and be responsible for this moral education. Hammurabi, when he introduced the moral law for all physicians, it really became part and parcel of all the physicians' performance. So one of the new ideas of the Ministry of Education is that it wants to issue a license for teachers. So what about this license? Is it not based on a code of ethics as well? So we really need for every single teacher to teach moral education and to teach morals. So I really support this principle and this opinion. Thank you. I've noticed, Professor, that the final statement or the closing statement, the final statement of the conference has already mentioned what we talked about, especially with regards to supporting teachers and away from distancing from theorization and focusing on practical science in the community. Please go ahead. My name is Abdullah Al-Hamadi from the educational sphere. I'm working on my PhD in pedagogy. Thank you for this wonderful conference which enriches our experiences and opens new horizons and focuses our concentration on this topic. Education and upbringing are two different topics, although each one of them relies interchangeably on the other. For the Sufi sheikhs or the sheikhs of Sufi practices, they believe that Sufism cannot be taught because it's a practical way of life and a practical religious approach. And in order to be successful with moral education in our schools, I believe and I hope and I propose that the curriculum should be without textbooks, because if we have textbooks for the curriculum, it will be taught in a traditional manner. So the better way to go forward is to avoid providing textbooks for students, despite the fact that there should be a textbook or a reference for the teachers. So they would implement interactive pedagogical approaches that are based on critical thinking, problem solving, and other key skills. Moreover, there is another important point, which is the assessment. I hope we can avoid this traditional approach of assessment. The assessment could be done through an interview, a recorded interview. And more than one entity would really assess the student, not just the teacher, starting from the teacher, the family, administrative, and even social experts, and including peers and colleagues. Colleagues should assess one another in terms of moral education, so it would be taken seriously. So, sorry for taking too much time, but Dr. Khalifa referred to a number of dichotomies that have their impact and take their toll. So, the media is really highly influential, whether official media or free media. So, in this regard, and now in the platform of social media, I see there is a lot of hostility and hostile comments, and this reflects negatively on the topic of or on the subject of tolerance. So there has to be laws and regulations that limit this, because when we see a dispute in Twitter, this also is reflected on students, as students are affected at school by such phenomena in the community. Thank you very much. Professor, please. No doubt what you have highlighted is very important and very rational. My own definition of upbringing is that upbringing is entirely different from education. And this really, in foreign languages, we don't have this difference. But in Arabic, which is a very rich language, we draw the line between upbringing and education. So today, here we need more upbringing than education. And this is what I really envision from the vision of His Highness and directives of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed to teach more education. We want schools that can upbring students rather than teach them. I can turn education into an e-learning process entirely, purely. But upbringing, you will never see this term in foreign terms. Humans are called humans and have an upbringing period that goes up to 20 years because they need this role model from the parents and from the teachers and still the community that we seek to have. One point just with assessment. The assessment of moral education is not is not using a traditional test. It has to do with practice and activities. Each student has a profile, and there's a profile for parents and for teachers and for the school administration for each student. So it is based on a number of activities and practices based on activities and daily practice of the students. This is the assessment process. Speaking from the observation of what you've said, the issue of the media. The media is very important, and we have to highlight it. I'll give you an example that has to do with role models. We have adopted this concept of moral education with providing role models. So when we see an Emirati media expert at social media using very obscene language that cannot be really used at homes, and then students read those obscene words and those vulgar words, especially when we have seen the dispute with Qatar. So this means that there's been a shaking of the entire ethical system, but maybe people have approached this crisis with Qatar from the political perspective. I can tell the name of this individual. His name is Hamad al-Mazou'i. Who gave him the authority or the permission to use this vulgar language, or to use one of the the whole body of a certain Qatari woman and then make vulgar notes about it. This is very inappropriate. We have to maintain our values as a community. He really represents an insult by this to the children of Zayd. We are the children of Zayd. The late Sheikh Zayd, of course, he was not our biological father, but he is our spiritual father. All of us take from the role model, the late Sheikh Zayd, and this individual and others who use this obscene language really insult us as Emiratis as well. We as ethical individuals, we reject all of this. So, as Dr. Ali bin Tamim highlighted this point, and he's the head of Abu Dhabi Media, but he does not really have the authority to control social media. But at least provide this vision, please, from your participation in the ECSSR. We as Emiratis, we don't want our characteristics to be as low and vulgar as that individual who is using this obscene language and many others like him. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Moza. The last question, please. We'll conclude by one last question, please. Please, the floor is yours. Peace be with you. My name is Wafa Mustafa. I'm an Arabic teacher. I teach Arabic and I also teach moral education. I would like to thank Dr. Moza for uploading us, but I still have to say that there is no fairness in distributing shares. And as I've seen in an article in Bayan, some teachers teach only eight classes, but we teach 24 classes and we teach 2 subjects in addition to moral education. So teaching moral education is a very important concept and we really are passionate about it as teachers. However, I want to ask, why don't we measure or link moral assessment to conduct or behavior? Let's say I have 24 classes, so I cannot really conduct this professional development process, and I don't really have the time. 24 hours are not enough. We are receiving new curricula that have been approved by the Ministry of Education. We don't have even an electronic copy of the entire curriculum. It was really difficult for us to receive the electronic copy. The textbooks were late to arrive. We received it only 3 weeks ago. All of this represents massive pressure on teachers. This all places pressure on teachers, in addition to the arrangement of or the agenda or the schedule of teachers. We have the classes 5th, 6th and 7th class. We have to go with the students and be interacting with students. So you know, or as all of you know, it's not just about the students. I teach to first cycle students. I know that they are children, but there are some parents who believe that teachers are just simply workers, or let's say they play the role of maids or something. This is we have had many conflicts with parents, and we are facing these difficult situations with parents. Even for Emirati national teachers, they are facing the same challenges just like us as expat teachers. So, in addition to this, the profiles. We as Arabic teachers, we have dictation and we have comprehension and so on, but we should be using other method of assessment. Let's say for free writing, it is divided. The assessment is divided into 5 marks. I want to know if the student has used the punctuation marks properly or not. Was he using eloquent terms or not, and so on, in writing and so on. So we have criteria for everything. Thank you very much. Last point, please. Last point. The issue of the profile, student's profile. I hope you can reconsider this point. This profile, why don't we focus or make moral education is linked to assessment of student behavior? Many students can go to the library and get great profiles and get high marks. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We will conclude. Please, we have a question here. I don't know if these are questions or requests. I'm not sure. Peace be with you. Peace be with all of you. My name is Hassan Toubat from the Higher College of Technology for Males in Al Ain. I would like to thank everyone for the information that they have given and the plentiful information and highly beneficial ones. Please be brief. Yes, thank you very much. There are many factors that affect the issue of role models, especially the relationship between smartphones and moral upbringing. Once again, I want to refocus on this topic, and we need to think how can we provide students, Emirati students, with the intellectual skills that are sufficient to maintain the Emirati identity when they receive this massive amount of information and values and ethics and conduct that they receive through social media. So I believe that it is very important to conduct a conference or a panel discussion to agree on the intellectual skills that are necessary to maintain identity. Thank you very much. Please. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. My name is Ahmed Saeed. I'm a teacher and I work in the education field. My question to Dr. Moza.
What about the different phenomenon that have to do with the conduct of students? How can, as for social researchers, how can they be referred to by the teachers after they are being measured in order to set solutions for them, because they are increasing through the last 7 years, like cheating and smoking. So how can educationalists can have reference to these issues? Thanks to you. And now we will start with Dr. Khalifa and then conclude with Dr. Moza. I would like to thank Dr. Jamal Suwaidi because he's really concerned about this issue, and he is an patriotic man, and he's aware of the seriousness of this issue in the Emirates. And I would like to add what the gentleman said and say that I really approve of what he's saying, and we need a session that is especially for about the new technology and the educational process, because it has really high impact so far. And I don't want to delve into using Arabic language because His Excellency knows Arabic better. So we have to a meeting with educationalists and technologists and also media people to discuss this issue. To conclude, I would like to thank you for these rich interventions, and this is still a very new experiment, and it's still it's still experimental, and we are examining it since the first day. So we are grasping the notes and the comments that we receive and add this to our way of testing, and also the method of teaching needs from a teacher to have to grasp its philosophy, and they need also time every day to like in 6 months or one whole academic year to be familiar with its philosophy. So this is very important to set the criteria for this issue, and thank you very much. And me too, I would like to thank everyone, and I can say we are talking about the diversity in nationalities, but also for our internet world, we have to think about how our kids deal with this world, because it covers even something broader than 200 nationalities. We have to deal with this virtual world. So this world can have its impact on our children, although it is not a face-to-face meeting. Thanks to our dear friend Dr. Jamal Suwaidi and the center and all those people who took care of us during these 2 days. And moral education subject is really an added value to the UAE society, and we have to wait a bit for it to be tested on the ground. And but the last question really attracted my attention, which has to do with the renewing problems and phenomena in our school community. It has to do with diverted conduct, and so we need to have some kind of surveillance office to observe these phenomena through the research units in each government. There should be someone who is concerned with collecting information about such phenomena, so here at this center, they have some surveillance unit to observe what's developing internationally and regionally. So we have to observe all these new phenomena. Also, what attracted my attention is what our friend Manwan said, that there should be social or community police to observe this point. But I think this is really a big mistake educationally. We should not engage the police in everything, and also that phenomenon of addiction, we have to look at those addicts as sick people. They should not view them as criminals, and it is getting more and more common now. So we should not engage authorities like the police into these issues. It is the teacher who should be the role model that can really reform these kids and reform and make them look better and behave in a better way. So we don't mean that community police be engaged in the issues of the students. They will not deal with them personally. They will just collect data and information from relevant studies. My deep thanks to you. And if the moral education really is looking for differentiating between the good and bad or good and evil in life and behavior, still education and moral education is striving to foster individuals and all our generations to be in contact with the most important altruistic and good values, and also to achieve happiness, and to be convinced mentally and professionally with all these values, as Dr. Khalifa said, and also to have strong beliefs in such values and to be committed to them voluntarily without any kind of compulsion. And also Also, we have to teach our students to avoid evil, and knowledge about evil is not enough. So I would like to thank all our speakers and all participants, and to Dr. Khalifa and Dr. Jamal Sanad Al-Swedi, and goodbye. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Thanks to all participants in the fourth panel, and also would like to thank you with their interactions regarding the e-questionnaire concerning this conference for this year. And we are pleased to give you the results of this questionnaire that you can view on the screen. And also we'd like to draw your attention that you will have a copy of the outcomes of this conference in English and Arabic and its recommendations on your seats. In case having any comments or questions regarding the recommendations, you can communicate with us through our website and our email. Now, Ms. Amal Al-Ahmadi will give us the final remarks, concluding remarks on behalf of Dr. Jamal Sanad Al-Swedi. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, most compassionate, dignified attendees, Assalamu alaikum. I am pleased, ladies and gentlemen, when concluding the proceedings of this conference that has been held for 2 days under the title Schools and Moral Education Toward an Education System that Consolidates Values in Society, to express to you on behalf of myself and the people working at the center, and to all the experts and researchers, to express our deep thanks and appreciation to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and the Deputy Commander of the Armed Forces of UAE, and also all the favors that he did to our center that would allow them to us and the center to support decision makers and to give consultations regarding all strategies and researches that would help us to have our prospects regarding the future, and also to express our thanks and appreciation to all of you for your participation and engagement in this issue, especially the group of experts and researchers that have contributed with their outstanding presentations, and if to help with the initiative of moral education, and also the mechanisms that have to do with its inaction. And that's why His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and the Deputy Commander of the Armed Forces, has provided us with this initiative to be included in our curricula, with the cooperation and facilitation of the Ministry of Education, as well as the Division of Education and Knowledge, to build and construct the effective personality of our future generation. This conference has proposed ideas and visions that really deserve to be studied regarding the consolidation of the moral values in the UAE among school students, which consolidates and enhances tolerance and respect in the community, and also fosters the feeling of coming out with initiative and also grasping knowledge. And I'm really pleased to thank our attendees who are experts and writers, as well as media people and journalists, for their interventions that really enriched the sessions of this conference for these 2 days. Dear attendees, these presentations that we had during the proceedings and the sessions of this conference have given us some constructive discussions for the moral education and integration in our schools, and also helping all the students, teachers, and our parents' councils to help them in their course, and also enriching their experiences in the development of moral education. So, ladies and gentlemen, on basis of our commitment at the center to support a decision maker and consulting with them, and also what you have presented and what you have arrived at as recommendations during this conference, we will work on using these ideas and circulating them at all the concerned parties, whether it has to do with our government bodies or also our cooperation council in the Gulf or all the Arab countries. And this will allow our efforts to enhance the values of tolerance and other things to be spread all over the world. And I would like to thank you again for attending this conference. We wish you all success, and assalamu alaikum.
وفي ختام أعمال
In conclusion of the conference of the 8th Annual Education Conference in schools and more education, I would like, in the name of His Excellency Dr. Jamal Saland Swedi, the Director General of the Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research. Once again, I would like to thank all the participants in this conference, and I would like to thank all the guests. Thank you very much, and we hope to meet you again in another conference. Thank you very much, and peace be with all of you.